So my flight was diverted and it landed in Keflavik International. There is some failure with one of something. There are certain degrees of panic and they must land the flight immediately.
All right, hello Sigma. Welcome to join us on a airline review.
Nice to meet you, Tom.
So I heard you flew with Turkish Airlines.
Yes, that was from Beijing International to JFK.
Oh, you have to make a transfer at where do you have to make that?
So I was originally transporting in Istanbul.
That was quite nice. And you have to make a landing at Iceland.
Yes, so my flight was diverted and it landed in Keflavik International.
So why did you choose this airline at first?
So I bought this ticket months before I left Christmas. Actually, I think it was in April because by then it was very cheap and it has some special discount for students. So it only costs like a few $100s.
Wow, that's actually very nice. I'm tempted to buy that ticket. How's the airline? How's the service on board?
The service went actually quite well. I think there are 2 meals served from Beijing to Istanbul and 1 meal served on Istanbul to Iceland and 1 from Iceland to JFK. The meals are fine, but it contains some dishes that may not be readily acceptable to all people. But I think generally the food was fine. And it has some Turkish characteristics. The yogurt and the dessert there were pretty good.
So if compared to Prism's dishes, Prism's is 100. On a scale of 0 to 100, what would you say the food served on the?
150.
Wow, that's actually quite nice.
Yes.
Is there any service, did they offer complimentary drinks as well?
Yes, so they serve the ordinary things and they claim to have something that is called a sorbet. And I tried it, but it did not deviate much from regular juices. Perhaps it was not very authentic sorbet.
Okay, so I heard the engine failed halfway from Istanbul to JFK, right? How is the aircraft? Is it old or is it,
I think it was a 777, 300 or 200. Actually, the flight number was very small because it was from Istanbul to JFK. It was a very prominent route. I believe the flight number is TK3.
Right.
So when our flight flew just over England, it just flew over the Isles, and a meal was just finished being served. And then there is an announcement in which the pilot speaks in Turkish and English, both with the characteristic extremely fast speed that Turkish speakers usually speak with. So we did not hear exactly what happened. So I heard that there is some failure with one of something, and we did not hear anything else that is legible. We did hear that the pilot states that this is the normal procedure.
Okay. More on that diversion later. But is there Wi-Fi on the aircraft or?
There is, but it's pretty costly, so I did not buy it.
Yeah, it costs a bit in most airlines. Do you have a carry-on luggage allowance or do you have to?
I have a carry-on luggage, which is my book bag.
Okay. Do you have any check-in allowances as well or it's no check-in?
I checked in 2 pieces of luggage.
Wow, that's actually quite nice, especially for the price. I'm gonna ask you about the diversion, which is the engine failed midway. Just out of curiosity, were you scared at any moment that you think that the aircraft is not gonna make it?
So actually, I think the pilots and the crew did a pretty good job at handling the aircraft. So originally, I was not very sure what has happened. And the aircraft showed signs of slight wobbly, but no major flaws in its flying I could feel. So it's later that with the conversation with my next seat neighbor that I knew what exactly has happened.
Okay. Is there any accommodation for, when you guys landed at Iceland or?
So it was cold and there were actually not very much accommodation on behalf of the airlines. So some of them took the blanket that is on board.
Oh, yes. Okay. How long did you stay in Iceland?
So I think we landed in the afternoon and we departed at about 6. We spent probably a little bit more than half a day there.
Oh, okay. So it's 6 in the morning or 6 in the...
6 in the morning.
Okay, so you have to spend the night at Iceland, but there is no hotel booked in advance.
No, so there was some hotels. However, the hotel booked for us is quite far away from the airport. So we had a 2-hour drive on a bus in the barren lands of Iceland, which are quite windy. The winds that gust through and bellow around us, it was quite an experience. And the land around is also pretty characteristic. It's a lot of lichen and a lot of sulfur. And actually we see smoking, like it's like the
Oh, it's the steam. Okay,
yeah, like,
the volcano.
Yes.
Okay. And you were mentioning to me that Iceland or Istanbul, that the Wi-Fi sucked.
So in Iceland there's pretty good Wi-Fi.
Oh, Iceland has pretty good
So in Istanbul, the airport is really large. It was the largest that I have seen. Like the boarding ports, I believe they numbered it to F. And there are dozens of boarding ports in each letter. However, the Wi-Fi is hard to comment because it requires you to use the passport. You need to put your passport to a machine to identify it.
Okay.
However, the machine does not work very well. And quite a few of us cannot make it in many attempts. So I did not successfully connect to the Wi-Fi there.
Okay, so Wi-Fi is good at Iceland, sucked at Istanbul.
Yes.
Right. Considering that you had to divert to Iceland, I would say, is that the worst part of the trip?
Well, initially so. So when we first heard the message, for those who understood it, there are certain degrees of panic. So there are 2 neighbors in my row. So one is a old white lady.
Okay.
She is keeping doing the crossing in front of her body, and the other person is a Indian guy. He just appears to sleep, but apparently cannot sleep. He kept staring out of the window. So I does not really know what happened initially. So I was not really panicking.
Because I think that this is quite a normal procedure. It does happen sometimes that the engine would fail, but this is a very unique experience. And considering all this factor, would you still fly with Turkish Airlines?
I think the airline itself should be relatively fine, but I will reconsider my choices after this. So actually, I am pretty lucky because right out of England, the problem was discovered, and the crew was able to make a divergence to Iceland. If we flew out on the open Atlantic, probably we need to go to someplace like St. Helena and become Napoleon.
Oh, okay. You're still here, so I'm gonna say that didn't happen.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything you like to add for a Turkish airline?
So, some faculty members said to me after I came to this group that to never fly Turkish. So I think this is probably a little bit extreme, but I think it is worth considering if you are going to buy a Turkish airline ticket and it was not very cheap. So prior to my flight, a few months before, there is also a divergence to Iceland on the same route because one of the flight's passengers had a heart attack and they must land the flight immediately.
So I'm actually considering flying from Uzbekistan, transferring at that place when coming to the States in the January. But I'll definitely consider Turkish Airlines. All right, thank you, Sigma.
Thank you too.